All right, good morning, everybody. Let's take a look at our trade plan from last night. I believe it's pretty much the same here. We haven't really moved at all on the overnight. We said holding above 23, which is kind of the middle of that capital B from Friday. Holding above that middle, we're looking for 807, which is that value retrace back to the high. You could also look for the POC as well. It's around like 90. And then above that, we have 820, which is that extension target. And then holding below 52, which is Friday's value low. We have a gap, because we gapped up on the Sunday open, going down to 605. So we'll look for that as an obvious target to the downside. And then below that, we have 535, which is a pretty old value level. We wiped out a ton of value levels. There's like 10 value levels there that got taken out. So we have to go all the way back to early September to find untested value. So we'll keep an eye on those. But yeah, same trade plan as last night. We have that capital B from Friday being retested. Very neutral price action right now. If it stays below that middle of the capital B, then the bears are still in control. Pretty much the same story on NASDAQ. You need to hold above that middle, and then we can look for that value retrace. If we don't, we're looking for that gap and probably that prior low or that prior value. So above 40, 382, 500, and then below 83, 441, 963. 441 is that gap. Today's shape is a D shape, but I'm going off of Friday because Friday is so dominant, which is a capital B. We have a little bit of a sweep on the open. The last 30-minute candle is sweeping that prior high. They are protecting the lows for now, though. You're not really seeing any lows being taken out. Stuck in a little bit of an accumulation here. Kind of just waiting to see if that capital B sell pressure is still here. A lot of pivots coming in on this like accumulation low. A lot of pivots in the mid 50s, mid 60s, trying to hold us up here. Good morning, everybody. Morning, Patriot. Backpack and Future Banana. Reminder, today is, we're not doing the Q&A right now. We're going to be doing it at the end of the market, so like 4 p.m. So we will have a second stream later today at the close for that Q&A for the first video. And then on Wednesday, hopefully Wednesday, we should have the edits done by then. Possibly Thursday if we need an extra day. That second video will come out. I think we'll be okay for Wednesday. Good morning, Future Banana, Tachi, LDT, Devil, Boat. A lot of buy pressure coming in here. Not on NASDAQ, though. Only on ES. Lubomir, Nerd, Jose, Igor, Andrew, Larry, C-Mac, Keegan, Astro, JC, Nitro, Scott, Roman, Scott D, Tamer, Barrage, Joan, GT, Adam, Ordinary, Scott, Darius. Good morning, Ryder, eBay, Jason, Blood, TK, Michael, Leonardo, Dennis. Appreciate you guys being here. Good morning. Pretty neutral market right now. We are not breaking the highs. We are not breaking the lows. Good morning, Ganesh, Angelo, Lucio, Victor. Appreciate you guys being here. Yeah, you could, Dennis. You could go down if you want to get like the exact level. You could go down to like the 1 minute. And you could not include the spike. So if we want to get the actual gap, we could grab like this level here. It depends if you're taking the daily gap or the low time frame gap. They're usually about the same level. This is one of those weird cases that it is a pretty different level. So if you want to be exact, the 1 minute is usually what you want to use. So the gap would be around 187. If you use the 30 minute, which is kind of what I use for the daily. Let's go to the daily. What's the daily look like? Yeah, so the daily doesn't even have a gap, funny enough. So the gap is a little bit weird on this one. I'd say basically anywhere inside that 30-minute candle, you can target for the gap. If you want to be more conservative, you could take that close target. If you want to be a bit more aggressive, you could take the 1 minute target. But yeah, they are a little bit different. They're usually not that far apart. That's pretty unusual that we're seeing such a large difference. It's because you had that nasty push down on the close. So the 30-minute high is somewhere around here. The actual gap is somewhere around there. If you're targeting that candle, you should be fine. I think because the volatility is so high, to be more conservative, you could target the top of the gap. But my trade plan covers both levels, so it doesn't matter. My first target is the conservative level, and my second target covers the bottom of the candle. Yeah, it's usually not that bad. It's because there was a massive closing move on Friday. Today might have really low volume, which I don't have my candle stats. Let me fix my indicators here. My chart got messed up. All right, that should be basically fixed. Keep it on the ADMAs pushing you down here. You bounced back into VWAP and the 24, and so far it is not liking that bounce back here. If you guys have watched that first video in the series, we will be doing that Q&A later today at 4 p.m. So right at the market close. It'll probably be a couple minutes after the market close, maybe like 4:05. That's where we'll be doing a lot of the giveaways for the first episode as well. Delta still rising here, even on that sell-off on ES. A lot of buyer delta on these lows trying to hold you up. Good morning, Victor, Sam, Trevor. Yeah, the video is about an hour long, so you should have time to watch it before the Q&A. It's also it's not just a Q&A. I'll be using that time to like go over a few things that I think that I could have covered better, or just like little bonus tips here and there on the first episode as well. Okay, there's that buyer delta we were just talking about coming in very strong now, breaking through VWAP. Still a pretty neutral market. Not really seeing a decisive winner here. Stuck between two origin levels right now. We have one around the mid 60s to 70, then one around 80. Very neutral price action. Volatility is still pretty high. It's definitely not as high as Friday, but you can see our range. Our range is pretty wide here. We're in about a 20-point range already. Yeah, I'm going to put all the videos into a playlist. So the playlist will basically be like the series video, then the Q&A, then the next series video, then the next Q&A. Problem with the audio? I don't think so. I can check my mic volume. It should be the same. Sometimes my mic volume gets a little low. Nope, we should be good. Sometimes it randomly goes to like half. Kind of a weird bulldog here. Bulldog in the middle of the day, though, unfortunately. It's kind of in like a do not care zone. Here's the bulldog head buyers, the little pullback. See if they can hold above that value high. You can see it's a very indecisive day. Low volume on the move down, low volume on the move up, slightly imbalanced. A little bit of a node. And then most of our volume in the middle. Not too low of a volume day on the 30-minute candle, 140, 137. and we still have about 13 minutes left. So even with the bank holiday, we have pretty decent volume. That bulldog is playing out here. The head buyers are getting their little breakouts. See if it can hold above the value high here, or it's just going to go back to being neutral. Good morning, Yusuf. Good morning, Mauricio. Before the giveaways, I will be doing some live on the Q&A, but I'll also be doing some through the emails as well. So make sure you guys have your tickets submitted to my email that I posted in the video. If you need details on the giveaways, just go check out that first part of the video. I go over all the details in the first, I think, like 5 minutes or so. But we'll also do some giveaways for the people that are hanging out on the live stream later today as well. All right, here is the Bulldog breakout. Not getting a lot of value on the breakout. Very weak so far. Need to build up a node up here. Delta is very clear on NASDAQ, or sorry, on ES. Not so much on NASDAQ. Delta is very weak on NASDAQ. It is following ES damn near bar by bar. Very wide opening candle. Trading over 20 points, taking out the prior low and the prior high. I don't really have any special delta settings. It's literally just looking at delta tick by tick. There are no special settings. And speaking of that, I actually need to re-upload. Did I not have that saved as a template? Let me see. I thought I did. Let me double check. Oh, I probably could just save this one here. Don't think I had the new one saved. This one? Alright, there we go. Morning, Chuck. Yeah, I believe today's a bank holiday. It's Columbus Day, I believe. Yeah, bank holiday. Yep. Not a market holiday though. There's a couple holidays that are only bank closes. They're not for the entire market, which is kind of dumb. No, I didn't, Tamer. That I mean, that's unfortunately it's sad, but that is extremely common in the trading world. If you look for stories like that, you'll be able to see them like every single day. So I try to stay away from that stuff. That is unfortunately the negative of this business. That's why I preach so often on this channel that you guys need to protect yourselves and protect your money at all times. This game is about capital preservation. It's not a game of how much money can I make in X amount of time, right? Yeah, that crypto crash was scaring the shit out of a lot of people. It was a pretty nasty drop. I think it dropped like 20% from the high. Let me see. About 16%. 15 to 16% from the high. So it's a pretty nasty drop. It's already recovered about half of it. The biggest problem with that drop, and Binance is actually saying that they are giving people money back. A big problem was, by the way, keep an eye on this breakout here, 705. Very strong breakout holding above that ADMA. Sorry, a very strong, or a very big problem with that drop was Binance servers went down. And not just their servers for like everyday traders, their entire database, their API database for market makers went down. Both the front end, the back end, the entire system, it was gone. There was no system for market making. So their market makers got absolutely obliterated. Yeah, they said they were reimbursing like a stupid amount of money. I think it was like hundreds of millions of dollars, which doesn't even cover probably a lot of their market makers. But if you guys remember on stream, I was saying like that was one of the first times I've ever seen Addis. I've ever seen the servers have that much of a latency. And it was probably from the Rhythmic side. It probably wasn't from Addis, but I was watching it on Addis, right? And that was one of the first times I've ever seen that large of a latency with the Rhythmic servers. And that was happening across the board on many different brokers, including crypto. The worst was crypto. And their market makers, like I said, they got destroyed because they could not manage their positions in a 15% drop from the high. And it's exactly what I said. What did I say? They were preparing for Trump to say that there was a China deal, or there was like, oh, these tariffs weren't really a big deal, or something like that. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what he said on, I think it was yesterday or Saturday. He put out another post basically saying that the China thing wasn't as bad as people thought, or blah, blah, blah. It's the same routine over and over again. We've seen it since the start of the year, where we have these like tariff headlines come out or deal headlines come out, and they just go back and forth, right? A bad headline comes out, the market drops, it overreacts. A good headline comes out, it goes back up. Rinse and repeat, right? It happens time and time again. Good morning, Mario. 30-minute sweep on the high. Also some absorption. A lot of buyers being absorbed on that upper level. Keep an eye on 84, next node, and then probably around 77. Going back into more of a neutral market here. Yeah, I saw all that, all the insider trading and stuff. That, like I said, that's another part of trading. That happens every single day as well. It is not a shocker to me. It should not be a shocker to anybody else. Insider trading has always happened. We just have very good tools nowadays that make it extremely obvious. Things like cheddar flow and unusual whales. And on crypto, you just have the blockchain, right? You can just see the stuff happening on network. But yeah, we have very good tools nowadays that can identify that stuff very, very easily. Hope they get jail time. You'll be hoping for a long time. That stuff has been happening, like I said, for decades. And how many people have gotten nailed for it? Basically none. It's one of those things that's pretty much pointless to talk about because it's just not going to change. It's been happening for far too long, and too many people have their hand in the cookie jar, right? Pullback holding on to the 24, so not going back into that value area, protecting that rebound into the value high. Trying to maintain this bullish pressure. I talk about the different types of days in the next video you guys are going to see on like Wednesday. I talk about how you have like bullish aggressive days, bullish responsive days. And this would be one of those days that if we stay above that ADMA, this would be an aggressive day, right? We're staying above that aggressive average. The buyers are buying up the dips almost immediately. You did have one test of the 24, but it's not constantly testing the 24. And that's a key point that I make in that video. That you can have one test here and there, but as long as it's not constantly hitting it every 2 seconds, it's not exactly a responsive day. So we were a capital B looking at Friday's profile. Today's profile is more of a D shape, kind of a neutral profile. Trying to shift today into a capital B as well. If they build up a strong node on that high, you'll have a kind of a gap in between, and then you'll have a large node on the bottom. They do need to protect this upper node, though. Yeah, like I said, you guys are wasting your breath. You guys are wasting your brain power thinking about that stuff. It is not going to change. Welcome to trading. If you still think it's going to change, you haven't been trading long enough. Still a sweep as long as you stay below 95, putting in a lower high on the 1 minute. Bear div, there is a bear div, it's absorption. So delta is higher than price because there is a node being absorbed at 95. Little top doji on the 5 minute. What's TACO stand for again? I know what it's referring to. I know it's the Trump like tariff thing. But what does the actual TACO acronym stand for? I knew what it was before, but I lost it. Trump always chickens out. Gotcha. Okay. So it's basically talking about exactly what I've been saying for the whole year about the tariffs. They put the tariff headlines out, but then they pull them. It just goes back to what I've been saying for a very long time. Like, people just overreact. And when I say people, I mean traders. Like, traders overreact to these types of headlines. And it's always more of a reaction to the downside because, like we always talk about, fear is the strongest human emotion when it comes to trading. So the downside move is always going to be more violent than the upside move. So you see these headlines and people just go crazy and they panic sell everything. They think it's the end of the world. So it makes that other headline, that opposing headline, that comes out and says, like, oh, the tariffs aren't really happening, or oh, we have a trade deal, or whatever. It makes that so easy for the market to go back up because people panicked so hard on the way down. Look at April. Just go back to April. It's exactly what I'm talking about. If you guys remember during the stream in April, people were panicking. People thought the world was coming to an end. It was a recession. I mean, you name it. You pick a bad word, people were using it to refer to the economy, right? And then look at what happens in April. All those perma bears get absolutely obliterated. One of the largest bounces we have seen in equities history. That's a 41% bounce since April. That is insane. This right here is just a snapshot of what I'm talking about. The fear is always so powerful, and it makes it very easy to flip. Long story short is don't panic, guys. Trade what you can see, not what you think, right? Yeah, the saying is time to buy when there's blood in the streets. Yeah. That's a more violent way of saying what I was saying. Yeah. Basically just means that the panic is, for the most part, most of the time, it's not going to last. Now, obviously, there are times in history that it does last. We have these very large pullbacks, these very large drawdowns, recessions, whatever you want to call them, Great Depressions. But as a trader, you always look at probabilities, right? And the probability of that being the case is extremely low. It's trading on emotion compared to trading on logic. '24 EMA still holding here, possibly retesting that absorption. We'll see. If it keeps putting in these lower highs, it wants to go back to, I was going to say value, but you shifted the POC up. So technically you are in value. So back to prior value. Yeah, here comes a little drop here, staying below the 24, possibly looking for VWAP. Had a little cluster building above the 24 there, getting wiped out by one candle. Yeah, the China thing is scary when you think about it. It's definitely not, it's not great. No one superpower should control like 70 to 80% of the world's global supply of like anything, you know what I mean? And they control a lot of the metals. So the metals market is in a surge right now because the I think it was the Pentagon, they announced they're going into like a buying spree on metals. I think it was like $1 billion worth or something like that. So a lot of metal stocks, um, rare earth metals, what and whatnot, are doing really well today. Delta Trail? What do you mean Delta Trail? I don't have a Delta Trail. You mean like the average? You mean the average right here? That's just a 60 EMA. Because it's on a 1 minute chart, 60 equates to an hour. So it's just a 60 EMA. Well, it's not just the processing. They control like the entire flow. They control like I think it's like 80% of the refining, but then it's a lower number. It's like 60%. Somewhere around 60%, I believe, of the actual like um what is it called? I forget the actual term is. I guess you would just say mining. There's probably a fancier term for that. But I don't really care, guys. I'm not really a geopolitics trader. I look at rectangles on a 1 and 30-minute time frame. I don't really care about these countries controlling supplies like this. Yeah, gold's up 1.5%. Yep. Like I said, metals are doing really good right now. If you guys are metals traders, then obviously you care a bit more than I do. Lower high coming in here on ES, still putting in lower lows locally. It is a bull flag, you're kind of a local downtrend in an overall uptrend. You have a bull flag into VWAP possibly. Keep an eye on VWAP at 80. Rollover top on NASDAQ. Very weak sweep on NASDAQ, so the rollover top's not the greatest. You typically want that middle level, that head, that sweep level to be pretty strong. Chris, you're getting more into like the politics of it. I don't really care, man. You guys got to separate your opinions on stuff like that from how you can trade it. Good morning, Bella. Good morning, Tamer. Still a 60-point move, though. 60-point move. What do you mean? You mean on NASDAQ? You mean like the rollover top? Oh, yeah, yeah. The NASDAQ rollover. Yep. Yeah, you're spot on. Yeah, it's a rollover top going into VWAP and possibly the point of origin. Point of origin would be this low right here. How much does my Addis plan cost? I personally don't pay anything. They give me an affiliate account to use. I don't know how much off the top of my head it costs. It's not their lowest plan, it's the one above their lowest plan, I believe. But off the top of my head, I do not know. What's the cause of the drop last Friday? There was a tariff headline. There was a China tariff headline that kind of got retracted on the weekend. Not exactly retracted, but a little bit. But that's why we dropped. If there's ever a move like that, it's almost certainly a tariff headline. There are a lot of bots that just instantly sell the second they see the word tariff. Okay, here's that VWAP pullback. You didn't really have a rollover top on ES, but you did have a rollover top on NASDAQ. It was just a weaker variation, as I said earlier, because the high, if you think about a head and shoulders, it has a shoulder, a head in the middle, and then a right shoulder. The rollover top is very similar. The middle level should be pretty, it should be higher than the two shoulders, right? You want to see kind of a sweep on that middle level. If you don't have the sweep, then there's not a lot of traders to squeeze out on the way back down. So it makes it a little bit weaker. It doesn't make it a bad trade, like you can't trade it. It just makes it a worse variation. Like as you can see here, it still worked. But if you take this trade like 100 times compared to a trade that has a very obvious absorption sweep on the high, the absorption sweep is going to have a better win rate. Yeah, no problem, Elsie. If you guys are just tuning in, we will have our Q&A for that first video in the Becoming an Apex Trader series. We'll have our Q&A later today at market close. It'll be probably like 5 minutes after market close. So around 4:05. If you guys cannot make the live stream, I will put it into a playlist with the first episode. And you guys can go back and watch it whenever you have time. The second video in that series will most likely be coming out Wednesday. If we need a little bit more time to edit it, it will come out Thursday. But I think we'll have it done by Wednesday. We'll see. The first video was on candlesticks. The second video is going to be on market structure. You guys hear me talk about on stream responsive and aggressive all the time. Higher highs, lower highs, rollovers, all that stuff. We're going to talk about all that in this upcoming video. I give some trade examples on sweeps and rollovers, and I talk about the optimal entry and kind of how to find the optimal entry zone. You guys hear me talk about that a lot in my tutoring sessions. And I talk about how to actually like quantify that zone, like where that zone actually is. So look out for that video later this week. I thought these videos would get easier to make as we go through the series, but it was actually pretty hard to make this one as well. So if it's a little bit scattered, we will clarify that stuff in the Q&A stream for that video as well. Bouncing off the value low here, going back into a more neutral market. Back into a rotation, possibly into 88. Keep an eye on VWAP here. You're holding VWAP bullishly on NASDAQ. You could be rebounding bearishly into it on NASDAQ. Or sorry, on ES, excuse me. Bearish rebound on ES. You're trying to hold it bullishly on NQ. We'll see which one is winning here. So far, it looks like ES is winning. Not a lot of bearish delta down here, though. The delta is very weak. Keep an eye on that ADMA here. If it holds on to that bearishly, it is not returning to balance. Right now, the structure is just a very wide balance. You're in a very wide accumulation range. If you start holding below that value low, like I said, you're not returning to balance. You're kind of breaking out of it. So if you stay below that ADMA, you start trending below that value low, you try to extend that lower tail. Let's see where the delta's coming in on this value low here. Awesome trades today. Yeah, the cleanest trade today was definitely that rollover on NASDAQ. That was pretty clean. Other than that, you had some like rotations, very wide rotations. How's our volume? 203,000. Very good for a bank holiday. 165. Yeah, it's not bad. I think because Friday was such a major day, our volume is still pretty high today. If that didn't happen on Friday, today's volume would probably be very, very low because of the bank holiday. Typically, bank holidays, you have very low volume. It's not like exactly holiday volume, but it's pretty close. Yeah, it's not too bad. The banks are closed, the bond market's closed, which the bond market's not moving too much anyway because of the government shutdown. We don't have a lot of the data coming out that affects the dollar. I think that's another reason why that headline on Friday was taken so violently, is because we haven't really had headlines, right? We haven't really had these data releases. So all these bots or algorithms or just people that are itching to trade headlines, that are itching to trade these data releases, they finally got something they wanted. Do capital B days tend to have wider value areas? Yeah, they typically have massive value areas depending on where the nodes are. Like if the nodes are so strong that how do I explain this? If it's like a very even double distribution where the nodes are very equal, then the value area is typically pretty wide. If it's a double distribution where one of the nodes is pretty imbalanced, then the value area can be smaller because the value area is going to be tied to that imbalanced node. Today, the nodes are very equal, so the value area is wider. But yeah, capital B days, if you think about, I mean, think about a capital B in your head and then think about a D shape, right? It's just two D shapes. It's just two balances. So instead of one choppy zone, we have two choppy zones. And both of them are trying to pull price back into them, which is what you're seeing right now. You tried to go up, the choppy node at the bottom pulled you back down. You're trying to go down, the choppy node at the top is pulling you back up. I mean, this is pretty much a textbook capital B. We did not hold the ADMA, we did not hold below the value low, so therefore we are going back into balance here. What level do I use for PDC? PDC. PDC. You lost me. Oh, previous day close. So you're saying what level do I use for previous day close? Hey, Joe, have a good day, man. I just use the technical close. So ES trades until 5 p.m. Technically, it closes at 4, so you can use 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. Now, if you're using most charting software, it's going to take into account the 5 p.m., the little maintenance period, after the little after hours period after 4 p.m. Like this candle right here, this is not technically inside the market. The 4 p.m. close is here. This is that last candle before that actual close. All right, rotation is complete. We're back into that upper distribution. So now we look for the same exact thing. Is it going to hold above this upper distribution and continue value higher? Or are we going to get pulled right back down to the lower distribution? That's pretty funny. There's a bullish block trade damn near on the lowest tick of the overnight. Yep, same on NASDAQ as well. So they were putting in bullish blocks basically the second it opened to trade the headline. Okay, here's the sell pressure going right back down to that lower node. We're just seeing the same thing over and over again here. And this is why I said it was a neutral day in my trade plan, even though it kind of looked like it was like uptrending because of the gap. It wasn't exactly uptrending, right? You're kind of just chopping around value. Good morning, Vivian. Usually, if you don't like trading D-shaped days, you're not going to like trading capital B days because it's basically just D-shaped trading but wider. Biggest thing to watch for on these type of days, we talked about it earlier, 30-minute highs and lows, right? We want to see if we're actually breaking out of this neutral structure. Is there a bias? And there's not really a bias, right? The lows are being protected and the highs are being protected. We had a break, but it's not really a break, it's a sweep. So when both lows are being protected and highs are being protected, who's in control? Nobody's in control. It's neutral. And I talk about this in my newest video on Wednesday. You can music if the initial balance is very narrow. This is not a very narrow initial balance. It's very wide. So if your initial balance is like in very narrow, very wide, it's all relative, right? Depends on the volatility. But today, we have a, what, 30 point? Almost 40 point? Yeah, it's almost 40 points. We have a nearly 40 point wide initial balance. So unless the volatility is extremely high in the afternoon, you're not expecting a major break of that initial balance. But if your initial balance is like 10 points, which you're in your market where your volatility is typically very high, then it's probably going to break that, right? So it just depends on how wide your initial balance is compared to your normal volatility. A very narrow initial balance is probably going to get taken out. And that's why we use those extensions, which I think got deleted. No, they are there, yeah. It's why we use our extension levels in the case of that explosion in the afternoon. You can look for that 100% extension, 200% extension, etc. So right now, look at how far away the extensions are because the initial balance is so wide. Our first extension to the downside is 26 and then 91. 591. And then upside is 732 and 767. So the more narrow the initial balance is, the more likely you're going to have that afternoon break. So far, every session today in that 30-minute session has hit both value levels. So each 30-minute candle has hit the value high and the value low. A very wide distribution here. You can see what I mean on the TPO chart. You can see how wide these candles are. You see how they're not respecting the EMAs for very long? They have these little micro trends where they are respecting them for like maybe 10 or 15 minutes. But then it's breaking through it and then breaking through it again. You see that very often on like a D-shaped day, right? And like I said, a capital B is just basically two D-shaped days put together, a double distribution. So you want to look for that key shift, that key market structure shift when you're going from neutral into bullish or bearish, right? Are we starting to hold on to these prior bar lows or highs? Are we starting to hold on to these EMAs? Are we rebounding into these nodes and failing to rotate? I think if you go back and watch today's stream after you watch the second video that's coming out this week, it'll make a lot of sense. Today's actually a perfect day for what I talk about in that video. This is why I always talk about using the 30-minute as like your guide, right? look at what we're looking at. Like, what the hell is this? It's just an extremely wide range. They're not protecting the lows, or sorry, they're not breaking the lows. They are protecting the lows. They're not breaking the highs. They're protecting the highs. So when they're doing both, you just have these really nasty candles. This candle had an imbalance to the downside. This candle had an imbalance to the upside, which creates our two nodes. And then this candle is bouncing between those two nodes. So you're retesting that one there and then that one there. So where's our value area? It is 66 up to 86. So what did I mark out? I marked out more so like kind of 71 to like 91. So about the same. This is a great example of like when you have really wide 30-minute candles, you can see little trends on like the lower time frames, right? Because when you're looking at a 1 minute, all you're looking at is like the X-ray vision of the 30-minute candle. You're looking at how that 30-minute candle is getting formed. So when you have this giant 30-minute candle, then obviously you're probably going to be trending inside that candle for a little bit. So if you're like a micro scalper, you could probably say, oh, there are some pretty good trends today. But if you're looking for the larger trades, then there's not really any trends. It's all relative, right? Depends on how you're trading it. I don't like to take those little micro scalps when you're just going for these like 5-minute moves or 3-minute moves. Like for me today, if I'm looking for large trades, I have to look for rotations. That's the only large trade it's giving you, is being a seller around the upper node and being a buyer around the lower node. Whether that's the value high or the high of that node or the value low or the low of that node, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's one of the extremes. Okay, here's a key point to pay attention again, because this is that kind of area that's waking you up. It's that value low to see if you're going to break this little balance we've been in. It is a little trendy. Like I said, it's trendy on the lower time frames. You have a little bit of a trend on the 1 minute. Is it going to break structure and start building value very low on the day? You can see if we zoom in, there's just no value down here because it wants to trade up here. Good morning, Mauser. So no break in structure here. Structure is the same. They are still protecting that value low, that lower node. You don't really care what happens in the middle unless you are looking for failures to rotate. Basically, if you bounce back in a VWAP and you just immediately start selling it, that's a problem. Okay, there's a failure to rotate right there. You started bouncing off the value low, and now you are rejecting that ADMA. Can it confirm the failure to rotate by building a node below the value low here? Let's see. You can see what happened there on the 1 minute. So the value low was basically right where the buy pressure started coming in. It bounced off it pretty aggressively, but it rejected that average. So you're trending where you should not be trending. You can trend into the value low. That's okay, right? But once you hit that value low, if you're rotating, you need to start ignoring that trend. It did not do that. It's not ignoring that trend here. So now we have like, let's say, what, 65 to like 70? So like this is kind of like the rebound zone where if you see a ton of sell pressure here, you're still failing to rotate. I don't know if you caught that, but you could see my mouse stutter. That's what I was talking about. My PC is like stuttering still. Yes, that is a bull div. That's not bad. There is a bull div on NASDAQ. So this is, like I said, this is that rebound zone. So we want to make sure that there's not a lot of sell pressure happening when you're rebounding. So you're failing to rotate, right? Where it bounced up and it sold. So now we're rebounding to confirm that sell pressure. So if we don't see any sell pressure here, that little failure to rotate was just kind of like it was just like stalling. It wasn't actually completely breaking the structure. It was just kind of threatening the structure. If you see sell pressure here to confirm it on the rebound, that's a big problem. We're not really seeing that right now. Trying to see if my mouse will stutter again. It's been stuttering a lot. Okay, you see what I mean here? So now we bounced up. There's that 70 that I marked out. That's kind of where the POC is. This is kind of confirming that failure to rotate. So those responsive sellers are holding you down. There's just no aggressive sellers. So now we could keep an eye on that node, right? We found where that node is. We found where that rebound node is coming in. And the sellers are starting to take over here. The responsive sellers are in control right now. Are there aggressive sellers? We don't know yet. So far today, the answer has been no. Because every single time they have tried to come down, there are no sellers on the lows. You should see a lot of delta down here if it breaks like 61, because you would assume there's a lot of resting liquidity there. They're still not finding the aggressive sellers. You see the fall off? It just keeps falling off in volume and in delta every time it comes down. Let's go down to even a smaller chart here just to show you. Let's see if we can get any delta below this level. What's that level? It's like 62 to 63. Sorry, I'm pressing all the wrong buttons. Yeah, I'd say below like 64. They're getting absorbed right now. A little bit of delta on the low, but it's being absorbed. Looks like that failure to rotate is coming to an end here. You're just not seeing the aggressive sell pressure. The responsive sellers, the limit sellers, were doing their job. They were holding it down. You just were not seeing the aggressive side. They just cannot find any sell pressure below that value low, which is very indicative of that kind of capital B or even like a D shape, right? They're trying to find value outside the value area, possibly push into the tails. You're just not finding it. Turning into a 30-minute sweep on that low as well. So right back into rotation here. Possibly back to the mid-80s. Here is VWAP. Keep an eye on VWAP here. So another key area to keep an eye on is when you have a double distribution, when you're going from one node to the other, how far do you make it? Like, do you stop in the middle and then come back down? Do you make it back to the POC, come back down? Do you go back to like the high of the node and then come back down? Because it kind of determines how strong one side is, right? So like right now, if we stop at VWAP, that would be pretty damn strong for the sellers. But if we make it to the upper node, then we could go back down and rotate lower, but there's still a possibility that maybe they fail to rotate and go back up, right? So you kind of want to see where that sell pressure is coming in to determine how imbalanced the day is, right? Right now, we're pretty balanced. Both nodes are kind of getting the same action. I think what I said earlier is still true. Let me see. Yeah, so what I said earlier about the 30-minute candles, every single 30-minute candle has both hit the value high and the value low. That is still the case. The D-shaped candle, or sorry, the D-session candle just hit the value high. So every single candle, so there's only been 4 candles, it's not saying a whole lot, but every single candle so far today has hit the value low and the value high, which is basically a perfect rotation. Joseph, I don't believe in those, man. I think a lot of companies that offer those are kind of scams. But if it's being offered by a reputable company, then that's okay. Yeah, normally straight to funded is very sketchy. I've seen so many firms over the years do that straight to funded business model, and they collapse every single time. Delta is very bullish here, following price bar by bar. The straight to funded thing doesn't really make sense to me because the whole point of prop firms is for people to kind of like learn the process and become consistent and kind of figure out what they're doing wrong and work on themselves as traders. But straight to funded, you're almost just like, if you already know you're doing everything right and you've got everything nailed down and you want to jump straight to funded, why wouldn't you just do your own account? I guess the issue would be like sizing. Like if you need much more size, that would be the key reason. Yeah, I've never heard of them, so I would honestly not put my money with them. I'd be very careful. I've been in the space a long time and I haven't heard of them, so that tells you something. These prop firms, they sprout up like weeds. There's like a new prop firm every week. There's a reason why I've stuck with the same prop firm basically since they've opened. They are reputable, right? They have a good reputation. All right, time to pay attention again. Here is the extreme. Do we start holding above this upper node? Anything above 94 would be kind of a little sketchy for the sellers. Yeah, there's a couple of big boys that I haven't done my research on, really. The only ones that I really have looked heavily into, and I've known them for years, are Apex and Top Step. I know there's some big boys that have started getting into the space recently that people use. But like I said, I haven't really looked into them too much. You guys just got to do your own research and figure out if they're reputable or not. If a prop firm has been around for like less than a year or two, I probably wouldn't even bother. You don't want to be the guinea pigs on these prop firms. Apex was an exception when I first started using them. I think they were only around for like maybe less than a year. But I was asking you guys in chat, and like every single person in chat was like, yeah, I use Apex. There's not a problem, blah, blah, blah. So they were kind of an exception when I first started using them. Have I heard of Elite Funded? No, I haven't heard of them either. My EMA numbers, I use 8 and 24. The teal is 8, the orange is 24. That is a very aggressive trend on the 1 minute here. 5 minute as well. 5 minute lows being protected. You are one time framing on the 5 minute. This is probably the most aggressive buy pressure you have seen today. Will it be enough to hold above this 94? We'll keep an eye on that node. Yeah, it's the big difference with other firms uh, that are not Apex, right? The big thing that people always compare is the trail. Like, is it trailing by current? Like, is it your current account value or is it your end of day value? And I always tell people the same thing. The trail does not really matter once you get to funded. It's just a problem in the evaluation. And if you're running into that trail consistently, then you're not going to make it in the in the in the live account anyway. That trail's going to be, you're doing something wrong, right? The trail is basically identifying a problem that you have. letting trades run too much, letting them come back from running too much. Having multiple exits fixes that problem quite a bit. It helps a lot. Having like one or two exits when it's moving in your favor, and then having one exit when it's moving against you, whether that's like a trailing stop or whatnot. Yeah, multiple exits fixes that that trailing drawdown problem. Not entirely, but a good bit. It's also a sizing issue. People size too much, and then their trailing drawdown gets way too close because they're trading way too many contracts. They're trading like 250K or 300K account size on the 50K account. I feel like prop firms are forcing people to be scalpers. I don't think they're forcing anybody to be scalpers. I think it's just the way that people like to trade. I think vast majority of traders that come into my channel or that I've seen are just scalpers. I think people just like to trade like that. I mean, you guys listen to me preach all day, every day for what, 7 years now about how I trade, and I trade a lot slower. Well, I guess not 7 years. It's been a lot slower recently, probably the last couple of years, maybe 3 to 4. About how I trade a lot slower. I'm kind of more of a day trader, not a scalper. But I still have probably the vast majority of my community listen to me on a daily basis. They're still scalpers. So they can use kind of what I teach and speed it up and use it in their scalping. But I think most traders just prefer to trade like that. They don't like to be in trades for a very long time. They feel more comfortable just getting in and out. And that's a question that I ask a lot in my tutoring. I'm always like, if there's a 20-point move, would you feel more comfortable being in one trade that entire 20 points? Or would you feel better cutting that into pieces and trading it like 4 times for maybe 5 points here, 4 points there, whatever? And most of them say they feel more comfortable getting in and out, taking multiple trades, instead of holding it with one large trade. Now, I'm the opposite. I would prefer to just be in one trade and just kind of sit back and like let it play. But I've kind of learned to turn my brain off when the trades are on, right? It's really hard to find that. It's hard to find that ability. Going back into rotation here if they cannot stay above 94. Yeah, it's really hard to find that ability to be like, yeah, my trade's okay. I'm just going to leave it alone. People have this desire to like constantly be messing with their trade, moving their stops around, moving their targets around. Did I make the right decision? Should I have traded here instead? All these questions going off in your head when you're in a trade. I rarely have a trade over 3 minutes. Scott, you would love to see my average trade time. My average trade time, I think last month was like 50 minutes. But that's also Tradeovate does the average trade time based on the entire trade. So like my average trade time for my first exit is probably way lower than that. It's probably like less than 15 minutes. But my average trade time for the entire trade is usually over 30, 45, 50 minutes.
Yeah, they are a barcode, 100%. If the TPO looks like this, it's a barcode. It's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Very normal for a double distribution. It's like I was saying earlier, every 30-minute candle has hit both sides of the value area. That's exactly what I said, Adam. They are just reputable, man. I've been with them for years. I've basically had no issues with them. I've had very few members have issues with them. Obviously, people always say like they get denied payouts and stuff like that. You guys know my take on that. I'm not going to get into this long ass rant. People are not just being denied payouts because they randomly want to deny people. If you're being denied, it's because you broke one of their rules. And the amount of people that have issues with them are very, very minimal compared to the amount of people that use them. The percentage of it's a loud minority, right? It's a loud minority the same way it is on restaurants or like take literally any industry on the planet. There is a loud minority. They are basically the best in the business as far as like consistency goes. Their prices are good. Their payout ratios are good. Their ability to get funded is good. We have had over 200 people over the years since I started with Apex. We've had over 200 people get funded accounts. Now, what percentage of those people got payouts? I don't keep track of that. I'm not sure the exact percentage. We've had members at the top of the list on their monthly payouts. So I know for a fact they're not scamming people, right? I've seen it with my own eyes. And like I said, you guys don't understand how many sponsorships and deals I turn down on like a weekly basis from all these other prop firms and people that want to be on the stream, right? It's not a money thing for me. If it was a money thing, I'd be spamming you guys with different prop firm links every 2 seconds. How many trading streams have you guys seen that have codes for every single prop firm? Their rules are really not complicated, man. It's it sounds complicated, but if you just trade normally, you really do not run into their rules. Their rules are just there on paper to protect them. You're not running into their rules on like a daily or weekly basis. Literally just don't trade like massive like news or FOMC. Don't change your size all the time. Don't like let trades go forever, like leaving runners on the upside or downside against your trade. It's all just consistency. Just do the same thing every day and you'll be okay. You run into their rules when you're not being consistent, when you're changing your size, when you're changing how many contracts you're trading on like very volatile days like FOMC or news. If you're like me and you're trading like it's Groundhog Day and you're doing the same thing every single day, you're not going to run into their rules. But all right, guys, we're going to call it here because I am having another stream later today. We are going to come back at market close, which is 4 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be a little bit after, maybe like 5 minutes after, just to give my closing statement in Discord. But we're going to come back for the Q&A stream for our first video. Let me grab that link for you guys if you have not seen that video. Be sure to check it out before the Q&A stream. Let me grab it. Here is that video. That is the first video in our 5-part series. The second video will be coming out on Wednesday, most likely. If we need another day, it might be Thursday. But it will be coming out this week, 100%. So keep an eye out for that second video. But later today at close, we will be doing the Q&A live stream for that first video. We'll be doing giveaways for Apex, Discord, etc. So be sure to have your tickets sent in. Just go watch that first part of the video. I talk about how to get entered in those giveaways on like the first 5 minutes of that video. So make sure you guys are following those instructions. You can send your tickets to that email in that video. And we will be pulling some giveaways on that live stream. Yeah, just have some questions ready. If you guys don't have any questions, you can just stop by. I'm going to be doing some like kind of tips as well. It's not just going to be a Q&A. I'll be giving some like bonus tips that we didn't cover too much in the video, or maybe things that I thought I needed to cover a little bit more. We will be talking about. But all right, guys, I'll see you in the afternoon. If you guys are in Discord, I'll see you guys there. Until then, hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. If you guys want to support the channel, you can use code BREW, B-R-E-W. That does get you entered in the giveaway as well. I believe it's 80% off right now. And there's also a 30-day trial down below for Addis if you want to check them out. But all right, guys, I'll see you later today. Peace, everybody.